NordVPN is becoming more than just a VPN. Threat protection will guard your device against malicious websites, malware, trackers, and intrusive ads, even if you're not connected to a VPN server at the time. Step up your cybersecurity and stay safe.
Ready to hop in the 6-4 and cruise around the blocks? There's a storm coming to the underworld and the heat is on. Take over the blocks and call the shots. It's time to hustle or get hustled. What's it gonna be? Stay sharp. It's a dog-eat-dog world out there. Don't let them catch you slipping. Only real gangsters thrive in the dope wars world.
Hi everybody, this is Crypto Rich, working with you to get rich with crypto, filling our pockets with crypto profit. I have with me the wonderful Alexander Mercouris and the equally wonderful Tom Luongo, both the sharpest political and economic commentators, in my opinion, across the interweb. And we're going to be doing our monthly look at what is going on in the world. And when will it all calm down? Hey, Alex. Hey, yeah, that's right. And then our poor children will have to deal with it.
Yeah, because it's in the immortal words of Dr. Manhattan: nothing ever ends. Like this just keeps going. It's just a story, and that story is a story without any kind of heroic cycle to it. It is just a bunch of stuff that happens.
Yep. Now, a few themes, right? And I don't know, we haven't created what we're going to talk about, but just want to say that are going on. There's the Mar-A-Lago Trump raid. There's the student loan forgiveness that Biden's rolling out. There's just a wonderful, joyous Christmas we're all going to enjoy in Europe, starving and freezing, that's coming our way. Then there's what's happening in Ukraine as ever, and Erdogan. He is something.
There's so many things to discuss. We haven't even talked. You didn't even mention Jackson Hole yesterday.
Oh my God! Yes, Jackson Hole and the
how do you like okay? My man Powell came in and put his thing on the table and went, oh, by the way, yeah.
Let's start with that, Tom. Let's start with that. So just say briefly what happened at Jackson Hole, which was a meeting where the Federal Reserve,
the members of the FOMC get together and they discuss monetary policy and whatnot. And so Jerome Powell, the chairman of the FOMC, gave his opening remarks yesterday. It was for a guy like me to see a Fed chairman finally admit some reality, like, oh, we have no control over the supply side of the economy. Duh, got it at one. Like so many things that he said yesterday, I never expected a Fed chairman to say while being explicitly hawkish about where he's going and what his job is to go forward was hilarious, edifying, and frightening all at the same time. So Powell's 15 minutes worth of pure entertainment. If you're a Fed watcher like me, it's all I got to say. I was cackling while making breakfast and going at the same time flabbergasted, like, okay, well, aside from the fact that Jerome did me a solid, because I think my subscriber base will now double because I've been right about everything. It's just, that's not even it. It's like, this is the path that I identified 15 months ago, and it's now happening. Okay, it was his Paul Volcker moment.
Okay, what does he say he's going to do? What's likely when they...
Well, I temper this statement by I always say, never, listen to what central bankers say. Always look at what they do. But since we're between meetings, they can't do anything until the end of September, until September 20th. But Powell was very explicitly clear in his assessment, which is to say, look, we are looking forward now. We are scared about our credibility with capital markets. This is what the phrase inflation expectations means to a central bank. If inflation expectations within the economy are too high, then the people have lost faith in the confidence of the institutions themselves that take care of the economy, and therefore we have to get that back under control. This is something that Paul Volcker understood explicitly. Powell quoted Paul Volcker directly when mentioning these things. So, and then he said, then he quotes Greenspan saying, and we have to raise rates because we can't leave the job undone, quoting Greenspan about when Greenspan had to raise interest rates during his reign. So what Powell said was, look, long-range inflation expectations are nowhere near the 2% run rate, and we have plenty of room to cut. We have plenty of room to raise rates, and we're going to shrink the balance sheet. And I was listening to Danielle DiMartino Booth the other day on, I don't remember where I saw her. She was on Kiko. She was right. So she was on Kiko about 2 days after I was on Kiko. People don't understand the Fed's QT policy at all, quantitative tightening policy at all. To understand that it takes upwards of 3 months for these trades, the sales of mortgage-backed securities and/or Treasury securities, to settle. So they stay on the balance sheet of the Fed for up to 3 months. So we won't even see the beginnings of QT on the part of the Federal Reserve that started in June until they settle on September 15th or even September 30th. So we won't even see it show up until the middle of October on the Fed's balance sheet statement. So all those guys out there that I complain about all the time, go, oh, the Fed's not tightening. Look, the balance sheet's still rising. Blah blah blah. They don't know this. How do you be a professional commentator? I'm just some dude from Florida with an internet connection and a bad attitude. And I just found this out, right? But everybody else in the world, they get paid to be professionals about this. We're talking about high-level bank analysts and guys who work for CNBC, and they all know this stuff, and yet they spew unbelievable nonsense about what the Fed's actually doing. And it takes somebody like Booth to, pour water on all this. Like, no, we're going to see this show up. We've already seen M2 crest. We've already seen the Fed's balance sheet crest. It's coming down. Powell is going to run the balance sheet off, and he's going to run the balance sheet down. And there's about 30% of U.S. Treasuries that have to be rolled over in the next 18 months. They're not going to be rolled over. They're just going to roll off the Fed's balance sheet. That's what's going to happen. Now, some of them will have to get rolled over, obviously, because it's not held by the Fed, and they'll be rolled over at higher interest rates, and that's going to put upward pressure on the budget deficit, yada, yada, yada. But, hey, them's the breaks, dude. You people have, painted yourself into the hole, into those corners. So this is where we are. This is the Volcker moment. This is where the potential for political revolution in the United States, they get its fiscal house in order while it's getting its monetary house in order with the right Federal Reserve Chairman. And we can actually, get ourselves out of this. It's not going to be easy. It's going to suck. Like, it's going to be a prolonged recession, which he said. We're going to have a prolonged period of badness, for lack of a better term. He did it in Fed speak. Like, yeah, obviously. But this is what we have to do, because the recession is not something to be avoided. It is the cure for the excesses of the boom. Capital has to be reallocated to stuff that's sustainable as opposed to stuff that's nonsense. You can't have that. You can't have a sustainable economy when people are still spending $2,000 on a stupid exercise bike with a video screen on it from Peloton. It doesn't work that way. We don't have enough food, not when we don't have enough oil or whatever it is that we need. Aluminum, this, that, coal, all the rest of it. And people are still spending money on Pelotons? Are you kidding me? That has to be wiped out. Peloton has to be wiped off the market. Teslas have to be wiped off the market. All this stuff has to be wiped off the market. So that's where I am. And I to watch Powell do that the other day and literally do exactly what I hoped he would do was actually scary, because I keep expecting to get disappointed.
Right. Thank you, Tom. Alex.
Well, what I wanted to say is simply this. We have already seen a significant tightening of monetary policy. That's how I would describe it. I mean, people need to understand that this has already been going on for some time. We're going to see a much further tightening of monetary policy. And this is going to happen in the United States simultaneously with a supply side crisis, which is primarily affecting Europe. America has its ability to produce oil, its ability to produce gas, its food, maybe not to the extent that it once did, but it can. Europe can't. It simply can't. Now, I don't know where this leaves us in Europe, but people in Europe need to understand that the Americans are not going to come to the rescue, because this is exactly what the sort of legend, this thing when we started off on this economic war of attrition that we were embarked on. We're going to get liquefied natural gas from the United States. We're not. That is going to shrink from now. The US needs to replenish its own reserves. They've been running down these reserves because the administration has been encouraging exports to Europe, and there's been the attraction of the high oil prices that the Europeans are paying. That's going to end.
While simultaneously restricting supply, Alex, at the legislative level. Like, they're doing it on purpose.
Yes.
Like, so.
Yes. Yeah. So We're going to have a major supply crisis in Europe at the same time that there's a major tightening of monetary policy in the United States. Now, in the US, big country, huge assets, enormous resources, they still have all of those things. You know, maybe not to the extent that they did in the 50s and the 60s, but they still got them. They'll come through. What happens with us, I have absolutely no idea. I think in Europe, we are looking at the most appalling situation we have had since, well, at least the Great Depression. I mean, you have to really go back to the economic crisis in Germany in the 1930s, the early 1930s, to see anything comparable to what is coming. Because we're going to have massive spike. We're going to have shortages of energy, of food. I gather that the biggest producer of fertilizer in Europe, Norwegian company, has just said that they're going to have to cut production because they can't meet costs. So we're going to have this whole thing working all its way through the system. And I don't see any sign that the European political class, the European business class, the European bureaucratic class has any idea what to do in response to it.
No, they don't. Well, I mean, the only thing I can think of at this point, Alex, is that it's what they want. Like, incompetence covers a certain level of this, but a certain level of this is willful. When you see at this late date, when you see people like Joseph Borrell.
All right, if you want to follow the rest of this conversation, then please come to my Odyssey channel. And this is because of the censorship on YouTube. You can go to Crypto Rich Odyssey, or you can find a link to the second part of this video in the description below.